If you bulldoze it or pull it out, you will anger the seed bank and create.
As you know, on the Farm Advice podcast, we want to put a little bit more back in your pocket as a farmer, and we want you to have the time to be able to enjoy yourself off the back of that and improve your daily routine. I was contacted by Christina Boon, thankfully down in Vic, about a problem that's pretty evident across Victoria, but also Australia alone, and that is Gorse Weed. Gorse Weed was introduced in the early 1800s as an ornamental and hedge plant. It's now one of the worst weeds in the country. It used to be made for wine and tea, as a fun fact, and you could pickle it in vinegar. But there's worse things about this weed, and I'll let Christina divulge on them. Let's get into it.
Sure.
Well, welcome to the Farms Advice podcast, Christina Boon. Thank you so much for coming on, but also for reaching out. You reached out about the project you're working on, but also it's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Jack. Great to be here.
So, kick me off. What's your role before we get into it, what this episode's all about?
So I work for the Victorian Gorse Task Force. Gorse is a noxious weed. We're concerned with coordinating efforts in Victoria and externally from the state to get best practice advice to landholders and stakeholders on how to get on top of this weed, gorse.
Beautiful. And so describe to me what gorse is as best you can for the audio listeners.
Gorse is a weed in the pea family. And via being a pea, it has the ability to fix nitrogen and to create its own fertilizer and outcompete other species. Now, the worst things about it, I suppose, is that it's a prickly weed. It forms dense, prickly thickets.
Yep.
It harbours feral animals, foxes, rabbits, mice, feral cats, and it is high in flammable oils. It burns extremely volatile. It burns ferociously, and it reduces farm stocking rates. It threatens native bushland and recreation reserves. It's one of the worst weeds. It's declared a national. It's declared as one of the weeds of national significance. So Australia considers it as one of the worst weeds.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big thing to say when it comes to weeds. We've got plenty to deal with, but whereabouts is gorse? Where are the sort of hot spots for it?
Yeah, good question. So it's in the southern states mainly. It's in every state of Australia, but its hotspots are in the southern states. So southern Western Australia, all of South Australia, Victoria, Tasmania, New South Wales. It's currently covering about 1 million hectares, but it has the potential to cover about 87 million hectares. It's the potential to grow in all soil types.
Is that like 1 million hectares as if it's like a gorse crop? That's how like the plant's taking up?
Correct. That's how much the plant's taking up. So it's more like about 23 million hectares that it's affecting and 1 million hectares that it's covering.
Is it a quick growing, like it seeds each year and then another 1,000 plants grow around it? How does it work?
Yes. So after germination, it's flowering and setting seeds at about 18 months of age. Its spread is quite slow, which is good, in that its seeds don't spread far from the parent plant. So you can, in one way, control its growth and spread. However, if it's on a watercourse or so, then those seeds will float and it will just go, the water line. But it will grow to about 4 meters within 7 years, and its seed bank is prolific and its seed bank is persistent. So its seeds will stay viable for about 30 years.
Yeah, right. And building up, how are we actually dealing with the problem? Are you spraying it out, or is it complete removal and just sort of get rid of that seed bank each year?
The best way is to reduce its bulk, so mulch it down and spray it. Those are the best ways. There is organic ways, however, the best and quickest way is to use herbicide. When it's quite large, you really should mulch it down.
Yep.
Then when it regrows, then spray it. So you're not hitting it with as much herbicide, but so you either have to, if you bulldoze it or pull it out, you will anger the seed bank and create further growth.
Yeah, okay. What are farmers doing for it at the moment? Is there farmer groups? Is this quite I have seen the weed somewhere before, but I don't think it was on our place. But for the southern farmers down in Victoria, South Australia, is there someone that you can go to, the local service for New South Wales equivalent?
Well, we at the Victorian Gorse Task Force recommend you reach out even to the Victorian Gorse Task Force, so vicgorsetaskforce.com.au. There's also the Virtual Extension Officer website, which has been created. You can use that nationally. It is you can find that at virtualextensionofficer.com.au. And what that does is you can pop in your parameters of your property, your gorse infestation type, size, and it will give you the best advice on how to control that for you. So it's a tailored website, which we think is pretty cool. So that's the Virtual Extension Officer website. So nationally, though, the national government has put out a best practice guide on gorse, which can be accessed through Victorian Gorse Task Force website, and you can branch out into other resources that way as well.
But we
must get on top of it. Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry. Is the problem as severe in the other states as it is in Victoria, or is there other gorse team members across the nation?
Tasmania is active, and South Australia, and then of course Victoria. It's because externally, but in New Zealand it's an extreme problem. So they've got it where it very much it's taken over the landscapes. So it can and will get bad, and it will majorly affect agriculture if we let it.
What sort of land is it tending towards? It sounds like it's tended towards the rolling hills of Victoria, South Australia, or is it?
Yeah, so it can be over all soil types. However, when it was introduced, it was introduced early 1800s and introduced with the British and the English coming here and wanting to create fencing because it is so impenetrable and spiny and thick. And then with the gold rush, I believe it was propagated further to create boundaries on their stakeholders. And so it's also very much associated with gold mining. And in gold mining country is very thick with gorse. So
we'll have to check the descendants of whoever introduced it. But it actually might be, is it from England, the weed, or Europe?
It's from Western Europe, yeah, mainly the Britain area. Portugal, Western France.
As a hedge or something like that, splitting up the fields, as they say.
Yeah, correct. And also it was seen as a fodder. You had to pound the spine so it wasn't, so its defences were all taken care of. But so it was a fodder, but we don't use it like that anymore. Once it's hardened, animals, horses, cows, they won't eat it. Goats will eat it if it's soft and young.
Yeah, they eat anything. Some quick tips on best practices if you have gorse out there as a farmer.
So control the growth and spread, and we must control the growth and spread according to the some legislation. So quick tips would be to work from upstream to downstream, and work from those isolated plants inwards to the larger stand of the plant. So don't let those isolated plants set seed, and then you've got a generational problem of decades-long seed bank in those isolated patches. So work inwards. Don't try and tackle it all at once if you can't or haven't got the resources to. Just do a patch well and think of it long term and keep going back and double checking it. Don't burn or mulch what looks dead for at least 12 months because it will come back.
Yep.
Burning isn't a quick fix. If you burn, you will set off the germination again, and it won't kill the plants as such. It'll just bring them back to life with more vigor. And because it burns so hot with those oils, it has the ability to prevent the native grasses from coming back. So you just get a stronger monoculture. And yeah, be kind to yourself, and you will get there. If you've got a patch of gorse, reach out, get support, connect with your local land care group.
There is some sort of form of support out there, like monetary or anything like that, a task force that literally drives around, or how does that work?
There's the Victorian Gorse Task Force gives out community grants every year, so you can apply for funding, and it's for every dollar you spend, you get $1 reimbursed. Sorry, 50-50. And the ones this year have closed, but keep your eye out for next year if you're in the Victorian area. So we have those grants. Best to access them through your local land care network. But in other states, I'm not so sure, to be honest.
Very good. But what is a farm's advice that you'd like someone to take away from this episode dealing with gorse out there? Should they just go straight to the website and get the best resources there? And
yes, I think so. So the best practice guides are on there. The best information, that current information, because there is a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of despair and heartbreak when people do things the way they think they should, or some other advice they've got. So go straight to the Victorian Gorse Task Force's website to get the best practice advice and get linked into community groups, etc. from there to get that support.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for coming on to the podcast, showing the awareness of what is so important. What's at risk in the next couple of years if this isn't taken the right action on top of it? Like, we're at 1 million hectares, you said now. What's the risk?
So obviously the growth and spread will continue, and it has the potential to take over. Will eventually decimate the economy. So it reduces farm stocking rates, it reduces access to your stock and your waterways. It threatens your assets nearby because of how flammable it is. So, because of its harbouring of feral animals, we're going to have an influx of rabbits. We're going to severely impact all our things we hold dear, like our native vegetation and our recreational reserves and our ability to walk paths. We seem to have lost a little bit of a handle on it and let it spread, but we need to come back on that and actually control it. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, but the information that needs to get out there, and everybody needs to do their part to reduce that. And that's why I'm here today, and I'm very appreciative that you've allowed me to be here and chat to you.
Absolutely. And I think it's great that states sort of jump across, and we're getting the knowledge too from each state across Australia, even though it does impact every state currently.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Jack, you said you're in New South Wales. I recently drove through New South Wales and I saw quite a lot of it. I was a bit surprised on how much I saw. So it's creeping. It's very much creeping around. I mean, and it's in every state. It will eventually just keep on creeping. So we need to do something and everyone needs to get onto the website, find the best practice advice, and see what they can do to get rid of it. But there's some new technology nowadays in farming. So, for example, an eco blade. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that, but it's an implement that goes on the front of a skid steer or the back of a tractor, and it wicks a little bit of herbicide on the underneath of a slasher blade, which can drive over a gorse infestation.
Yeah.
And as it slashes, it'll just wick a little bit of herbicide on that, directly cut stem and it will kill that root in one pass. So that's a brilliant implement that is out there that you can access or hire or and actually on that note, if you're going to go through and cut them, so controlling your isolated gorse plants in a paddock, if you're working from the outer lying plants inwards, if you're going to cut them and dab them with a bit of herbicide, the cut and paint method, you've got 20 seconds from the cut to dabbing with herbicide to kill that plant. That's your open window, 20 seconds. That's important.
Absolutely. Well, it's a bit of a mouthful, all about one weed, but a very important tool, no doubt.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
Keep it going. So what can the community sort of do together to combine their efforts? Like when we're trying to bait foxes, I imagine it's probably the same with gorse weed. We need to be of it and our neighbour, his neighbour.
Yes, yeah, and it can be very frustrating for neighbours. Neighbours can be very frustrating for other neighbours, and one neighbour will think, oh, you know, why do I need to? It's not affecting you, but it really is. And if you've got a gorse problem, you're likely to have a rabbit problem and some of the other problems that go with that. And it can be very so as soon as you really got gorse, you're very soon likely going to have a couple of rabbits, and as we know, those rabbits are going to be, you know, over 100 rabbits. Possibly in a year or so time, and they harbour the warrens, and it's hard to get rid of the warrens underneath the gorse. And around the flammability, it's extremely hard it doesn't need much to burn. It can burn in the rain, it can burn green, and it burns extremely hot and is such a threat to assets nearby. And because that centre of gorse is so dry and fine, and those bits go flying off to just take off and burn other things in the landscape. So gorse increases your risk of losing other things you hold dear nearby. And
does it flower in like springtime?
It mostly flowers in autumn and spring, but it can flower all year round. Yeah, so stopping that, particularly stopping those individual plants from flowering as one pops up because it got taken by a bird or an ant or something, those ones, you've really got to get those ones and stop that generational decade problem in that new area and contain it and then deal with the long-term follow-up on that one patch. Yeah.
Beautiful. So keep it contained, should be good.
Yeah. And also the other thing is a lot of people, because it's such an awful weed, it reduces land values. And what a lot of people do if they're thinking of selling up their farm, selling up this, that, the other, they'll contain it for that year. They'll go and mulch it all, they'll make it look all good, and then they'll sell the property, and the next person has this burden that they never expected. So you've got to keep your eye out too when you're purchasing a new property. Yeah. That's a trick that a lot of people do. Yeah.
And done quite easily. You can see the reasons for it or even not to do it if you're selling or buying and everything. And that's the sort of knock-on value, isn't it, when a lot of things happen like that. If you get rid of course, you get rid of all these sort of different little elements that seem to come together at the end.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. But it can be gotten rid of. It's persistent, but it's something that we can do, which is what we've got to keep in mind. Yeah, and that virtual extension officer website can give a lot of insight on how is best for yourself.
Yep, great stuff. Well, I have to get onto the virtual extension. I didn't know that was about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you don't actually have to organise somebody to come out and chat to you. You can just go and do it yourself with your parameters that are specific to you. Yeah.
Yep, well, for this episode, I'll drop the links in the show notes. So for anyone looking to get the resources or the Vic Farmers website, they can go ahead and do so.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Jack.
Too easy. Right,
cool.
I'll leave it there. That's fine.
Yep. Good luck with your lamb. Why is it sick?
He lost his mum young, and then we put him onto hay, and I think he's not reacting to the hay.
Yeah.
You should.
Oh, what kind of sheep?
We've got a white Dorper stud.
A white Dorper stud?
Yeah.
Oh, I've only got a few white Dorpers, but I love them. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very good. Whereabouts are you based?
Dalesford, Victoria.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Central Highlands, Gold Country, actually. Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful.
Epicenter of Gorse in Victoria.
We'll keep in touch anyway.
Cool. Thanks so much, Jack.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Cheers.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
This Farms Advice episode does not stop here. Come and join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, and even join our Facebook group. Go to farmsadvice.com.au for more on this episode and spread the hashtag FarmsAdvice to your mates. If you can leave a review on Apple or Spotify, that will let other farmers find us too. But until then, see you next Tuesday.